Don Galloway continues as Detective Sergeant Ed Brown in the Ironside series. Scott Brady calls you a pusher. Wonder why he does that.
Me, a pusher?
That wasn't very nice, was it?
Wonder what he meant by that.
I don't know.
Anything Scott Brady says is all right in my book. It's okay.
He's a big guy. You don't argue
he's
with
a
him,
good
I
guy,
see.
too.
Is he?
Yeah.
Yeah, you like sports. Do you like sports?
Oh, sometimes, yeah. I've been playing softball recently. That's kind of fun.
Were you down in San Diego in that softball?
No,
game
I
down there?
wasn't. I was tied up that day. Some friends of mine were down. Said they had a great time.
Yeah.
They were out at the stadium and with the guy. Yeah, I wish I'd been there.
Maybe you can make it some other time.
I'd like to.
They like other kind of games too, I understand. Your wife beat you at poker, but other than that, we won't mention it.
I just say that. She's pretty good, you know.
Is she?
She really is. We play pretty often, once a week usually. And we have 2 wives who play in the game, and both of them are real good.
So they have the whole week to practice up while you're out working.
That's it. I'm out working. They're home, just shuffling and dealing seconds, the whole thing.
What was this game show you were on? A TV game show, though. That's another kind of a game that you're
Yeah, it
pretty
is.
good at.
Yesterday, there's a show called Password, which Alan Ludden does.
Yeah.
And I love this show. I think it's just excellent. And they're having a special week coming up with a lot of actors on. And they asked Elizabeth Bauer, who's also on Ironside, and me to do 1 game with them. And we did, and we were pretty bad.
Pretty bad?
Yeah,
I
our
was going to say you were pretty good.
You know, the situation, they got like, for 1 whole week, I guess it is, they've got Elizabeth Montgomery and Robert Foxworth on one team taking all challengers. Well, now those 2 cats have ESP. I mean, they just mention a word and the other one's got it. They're really tough. So they beat us quite handily. Quite. It's a fun show, though. I really enjoyed it.
Speaking of working with people, now when they bring you out to this Affiliates Film Festival like you're doing now, you probably visit in 19-20 towns with 19-20 different people in the course of an afternoon. How does that affect you?
Well, it's a little tiring, I suppose. I enjoy it. I kind of look forward to seeing some of the people each year because it's the only chance I get to see them, and I like them. You know, an interview is really a conversation. And if you can get a good conversation going, that's just as fun as sitting at home and having a good conversation.
Is that easy to do in a situation like this?
It really depends totally, from my point of view, it depends totally on the interviewer. If he or she wants to talk and it comes up with an interesting lead into a conversation, it works great. But I have to, like when I sit down, I really want to wait for you to ask a question because it's not my show, it's your show, and I'm not going to intrude on your show. When you ask something, I'll be glad to bore you for hours with answers if necessary.
But from our point of view, you know, we really like to see you people come around because we've seen you in this series, we see you as this character and so forth. Now we get to meet you in person. It's a thrill for us. And I just wonder if it was a bit of a bore for you to go from town to town
that's
and say, oh boy, I got another dummy from San Diego is going to ask me questions.
No way, no. It's very complimentary of you, but I enjoy it a lot. I really do.
Do you?
Yeah,
Good.
it's fun.
Do you think you'd like to do a show like that?
You mean an interview
You'd like
show?
to be a talk host guy?
Yeah.
Would you?
Yeah, I would. It would be fun. The trouble with like trying to do a talk show is that it has been done so much. I don't think it can really get overdone. It's just that people look and they say, "Oh, a new talk show on the air." Fine, you know, because there is so much of it. But again, the only thing you need for excitement is an exciting conversation.
Yeah. Have you had any conversations with the big boys like Johnny Carson,
No,
Merv, and those? Have you done those bits?
I haven't done interview shows. I'd rather run one than do one.
Would you?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, maybe that'll be the next series.
Yeah.
Is Ironside going off this fall?
We're going on
after this
for our 8th season, and we plan on this coming year being our last season. But I think it's going to be kind of a fun season. We got a good kickoff show. We're starting the season with a 2-hour show that is kind of about the occult and the supernatural, and you might even say about exorcism. There's a movie out that has something to do with that now, as I recall.
Everybody's riding the wave.
Oh, wow. Anyway, it's kind of a fun show with a good cast. Carolyn Jones is in it, Bill Bixby, Sean Barbara Allen, and it's nice fun. And Raymond Burr, I think, is in it too, by the way.
Oh, is he back?
I think he's back.
Oh,
We're going to let him come back in this year.
What's Don Galloway going to do, though, after the season?
I have no plans. Every day's a new day, and today I knew I was coming up here, so I really don't know. I got a couple of movies I'd like to do. We'll see.
Who knows, you might be able to get a good price on an island in Fiji and retire.
Somebody did that.
Somebody
I think who it was.
Oh, well, whatever.
Yeah.
One of your favorite people in San Diego, he comes down to see you a lot, Don Galloway, and you'll see him on Ironside again this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
My job. When you write letters either complimenting or griping about NBC's programs, they may come across this fellow's desk. because he's the Vice President of Programs, West Coast, John J. McMahon.
But
John, do you get complimentary letters? Griping letters come across your desk?
I think, well, we get both, but it's nice to get the complimentary ones.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've gotten, this year's, we got a tremendous amount of, on the letters after we had shown the Little House on the Prairie, which is going to be one of our series, that were very complimentary because it's based on children's books that were written, a very successful series of children's books. So we got good reaction to that.
I think a lot of people really wonder if their mail is read, if their voice means anything in programming. Can you answer that?
Oh, I think it means a tremendous amount. We read everything that comes through. I don't read everything that is, I mean, anything that's directed to me, I read. And the network takes, credence of a lot of the things because really, we're programming for a large audience out there, and when they're heard, a lot of things that they say are very meaningful and can help us. Then there are some crank letters too that you get that really don't help or hurt or mean anything. But generally speaking, if it's a constructive kind of comment, it can help us.
I've heard so many people say that they feel the ratings are not fair. After all, they'd never been called, they'd never been asked. Who's asked? Whose voice is the ratings?
Well, let's put it this way. The rating system as it exists today is probably as good a system as we have. I'm not saying that it can't be improved, but it's what we've got. We have to go by something, and that's what we go by. It's become a lot more sophisticated in recent years, I think. More automated. They do change the sampling. It is a representative of the sampling of different markets throughout the country. And as I say, it is the tool that we do have to work with, and so we work with it the best way we can.
But you say it might be improved. Could it possibly be improved through a cable antenna into each person's home? Would that ever be a direct 100% feedback as to what somebody's watching?
Well, we test some programs on cable antenna now. Our research department tests new programs, pilots that we will put on CATV, and then we will do a callback on those. And we find that gives us a lot more information. But I'm sure, like the Nielsen company is always looking for better ways to improve the system.
John, since you're concerned with primetime programming mostly, are you very concerned about the fact that CBS came up with 9 of the top 10 programs this year?
Sure, of course
So what are you going to do?
They beat our brains in a couple of occasions. What we have done is that we think we have the best year of development that we've had in the history of NBC this year. We really spent a great deal of money, developed a lot of scripts. We're replacing 12 hours of programming. There are 12 programs, 11 hours of programming. We really think we have the new programs this year that are going to cut into that lead. We were in a very good number 2 position, but we don't want to settle for that because we're in a competitive business and we'd like to be number 1. But I think we do have the shows this year that are going to close the gap considerably. Last year, the writers' strike affected us a great deal in that we had more new shows that we were putting on last year than CBS did. And when you have a writer's strike, it is tougher on new shows than it is on old shows because you're developing a concept, you're trying to get writers to understand the new story lines that you're talking about and the new characters that they're dealing with. And this year we have not had that problem. We've had a full year and we have scripts on all our new shows that are in advance. We've been able to get our production started earlier, and as a result, we're going to be ready.
Yeah, we're looking forward to a big difference.
Yeah.
Thank you, John J. McMahon, Vice President of Programs, West Coast for NBC. Noah Beery and Joseph Rockford in the Rockford Files on NBC this year. Noah, is this a different type role for you, or is it pretty much fall into what you've done before?
No, this is a completely different, actually. And I can't describe it because I haven't done enough of it yet. So we're both at a loose end there. But it is It is different.
Yeah. When I say the usual type role for Noah
Well,
Beery, I wasn't
like
indicating
the
your
usual.
typecast.
No, I like the usual type.
Do you?
But I also like this because of its being different.
Yeah. How would you describe the Noah Beery role, the usual
Well,
type?
for years, of course, it's been what Bill Holden used to call his early ones, the smiling Jack that he played forever. Well, this is sort of one with dirt on it, it was, you know.
Somebody else described the type of role you play. I think it was Andy Devine.
Oh, what did he say?
He said, the second guy through the door.
Yeah. Well, that was always true with Andy because there was only room for one when he was there.
The first guy through the door was always a star,
Yeah.
and then you were the second guy through the door. You know, the swinging doors of the saloon.
Have you seen Andy lately?
It's been a while. I did a little play with him down in San Diego.
Oh,
one
God,
time.
I'd love to see him.
Isn't he a beaut?
I'd love to see him.
He's some kind of guy. He's getting up in there, though, now.
Well, there's some things you can't help. You know.
Yeah, he's all right. They tell me that you like Charlie Russell, the painter.
Oh, yeah, I was the... this is one thing I can boast about without boasting. I was the honorary chairman at the big Russell auction just this year in Great Falls. It is not especially an auction of his pieces. There are a few, but it's the proceeds are for the Russell Museum in Great Falls. Wonderful.
Which is a dandy, isn't it?
Oh, yes. Of course,
haven't
the
seen
great
it, but I very
collections
much
are all out of the state.
Oh.
These are the small, intimate collections, and as such, they're lovely.
You have some of Russell's ones?
Yeah, I have some that I've gotten, and then I had, the way I started was about the only way anyone could have. My mother and father got them in the early days when you could get a $10,000 Russell for $250 or something.
Wow.
Which gives you quite a good foundation to
Aren't you lucky
start
to have gotten
collecting
them?
on.
Yes, yes.
But I
Some
like
people
them.
say that Charlie's ego got in the way of his art. Have you studied him enough to know?
Russell was a God-given genius. He was a unique American genius who proceeded from absolute childlike start to the great master he became. No, I don't. I never heard that before.
He certainly chronicled a chunk of Western life that the movies
he could
have
paint
covered.
anything too. You know, they've had his story here. We're here, not the hotel. The Universal's owned it for years, and I don't know why. Well, I can see why it's never been done. It's so hard to do. If they ever did, you remember Moulin Rouge?
Yeah.
When they'd stop the action just for minutes at a time and just unroll paintings.
Yeah.
That's the way they'd have to do that.
Yeah. Why don't you take that on, produce
Well,
that, be Charlie Russell?
Oh, man, if I did, I'd go to location on Montana and I'd never come back then.
You'd leave that dirt right on the face and
You
stay
bet.
there. The one other thing I've never been able to understand, or maybe you have done this, I haven't seen you do it, why you haven't done Will Rogers.
Oh, I did Will Rogers. I did Will. Of course, in the movie, I played Wiley Post. Whether you remember that or not, but I played Will Rogers in the big centennial pageant in the Hollywood Bowl.
Oh, but I
For a
don't think
week.
I'd ever seen you in
No,
the film.
but it was a lot of fun. But you know, when Mike Curtiz did Will Rogers, he had me in many times because I'd always had that comparison. So he says, I'm going to have you play Wiley Post. He says, can you rope? He says, can you ride? Neither of which Wiley Post did, so I knew that he had me there for a standby for Will Jr., who did a wonderful job and who's a close friend of mine. But I know because he could have gotten 8 million guys to play Wiley Post, you know?
I wish you'd have done Will.
Yeah, I'd like to too.
One of these days, Will Rogers and Charlie Russell. But right now, he's busy as Joe Rockford on the Rockford Files.
Yeah, and I'm going to be busy with it too. I'll be busy just doing it there.
What do you mean you don't give a good interview? That was fantastic.
Are we through?
Yeah. Here's Sergeant Joe Broadhurst from the McLeod series. You recognize Terry Carter, I'm sure. Terry, nice to see you.
Hi, nice to see you.
You've got that big smile on your face. You must have just heard about the ratings.
Yes, I also heard the strike is not going to be called too. That's kind
Oh,
of
really?
That's right.
Oh, fantastic. Well, you're working then. Beautiful. But gee, McLeod's the only one that scratched for NBC in the ratings. That's great.
Yeah, it seems to be doing very well, despite the fact that most people didn't know when we were on last season. People I ran into in the street always said, "Well, when are you on?" Because it was either, it was an irregular kind of a season. We're going to be on much more regularly this year.
Oh, yeah?
Every third Sunday, I hope, rather than every 8th.
Yeah, I've got to admit that was a little bit staggered last year.
But despite that, we were able to garner some good ratings, so
You
there's
certainly
no
were.
reason why we shouldn't even do better this year.
Yeah, yeah. Do you see yourself spinning off that role, maybe into another role or a series of your own, Terry?
Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, it's a possibility that has been talked about, but it's a little premature now. I expect that McLeod is going to run for the next 5 years, and I'll be glad to stay on the team. Let's put it that way.
Sure, and then maybe in the 6th year, have your own team.
Exactly.
Right? Put it together. Speaking of team, have you ever been an athlete, Jerry?
Not of any note. Let's put it that way. I used to run for the subway, and
Did you win? I want to know.
occasionally I did. Yes.
Because you look like you could probably handle yourself on a football field. Or
Well, I went out for
Baseball.
football, and I got so sore that first week that I didn't show up the second week.
that's worse than the PE in the Army.
Oh, it's punishment.
Yeah, absolutely. How's Dennis Weaver to work with? Is he all right?
He's a pleasure to work with. He's one of the finest human beings I've ever met. I can tell you that
He
sincerely.
certainly learned a lot since he left Joplin, Missouri, didn't he, as a country boy?
Well, I think he brought a lot of it with him, though. He brought a lot of his, a lot of warmth and a lot of. He's a very simple guy. He's a very easygoing fellow,
And yet he knows his trade, doesn't he?
oh, he knows his trade. Yes, he can handle himself in any situation, much better than McLeod can.
Well, that's kind of a stumbling, bumbling character he
Right.
comes up with, eh?
Right.
He doesn't wear a raincoat like good old what's his name, but
What's his name? Yeah.
yeah, what's his name? But that's all right. Do you ever learn anything from fellows you work with, like Dennis?
Oh, I learned a great deal. Before I worked on McLeod, before McLeod started, Dennis had been one of my favorite actors. You know, we actors have our own favorites, and they're not always people who are very much in the public eye. At that time, Dennis had a few series, and he was a working actor, and he's a person whose work I admired so greatly that when I found out he was going to be doing this series and I had an opportunity to be on it, I was very eager to be a part of the team. I was offered at that time a couple of other series, names of which I need not mention because one of them you won't remember and the other one went off in the first season, and I put my money on the right horse.
You certainly did. You certainly did. And think of the young people that perhaps are looking at you, Terry Carter, and saying, gee, that's the kind of actor I want to be.
Well, that's very nice to hear.
That's Terry Carter. You see him on McLeod. Can't imagine anybody that plays a part more convincingly than Scott Brady in Police Story, the owner of the bar, Vinny, huh?
Right.
You like that part?
It's all right.
Yeah.
I've been in many bars, both sides of them, in my
I wasn't going to say that. Scott.
roaring youth.
I wasn't going to say that. Don't you roar anymore?
No, I'm down to a very quiet meow now.
Slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
You just follow the guys that roar, the sports teams
Big rooter.
and so forth.
Yeah.
Are you a big rooter?
Yeah, I'm there with heavy lenses, Bob. Go get 'em, Tigers, you know.
Who's your team?
Oh, the Fighting Irish. What else?
Gotta be. Well,
Yeah,
you
but
said-
I'm not just the front one. Not because they're champs this year. I've been supporting them way back in the very,
Back when
very,
they lost?
very few slim years.
Yeah.
We don't have very many.
That's
of them.
right. They haven't had many.
That's right.
No. Were you a player?
No, Lord, no. Are you kidding?
Back
Oh,
in
high
your roaring
school.
youth?
High school. That's
Yeah.
all. I was never up to that level by any means. My brother Ed had a good shot at that, though. He
Is
was
that right?
great, yeah.
Yeah.
But he got the old knee problem, you know.
That's a world in itself, isn't it?
What?
Athletics.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a hell of a big world now with the dough they're paying some of those guys.
Isn't that true?
And the TV, I think they sold more high-priced time on athletics in the last few years for football and baseball than they have on anything.
I wouldn't wonder. Probably because the game takes so long, for one thing. You know, it's like a 2-hour, 3-hour show,
Yeah.
for one
Well,
thing.
what I'm saying about the ratings, though, also, like the
Yeah.
display, the Super Bowl and
Yeah.
all those big high ratings.
Well, look what ABC did with those Monday night games.
Terrific.
My
yeah.
gosh.
My wife says, not Monday night. You know, I measure me a real football nut, sports nut. And my wife says, you mean Monday night still? She doesn't go for that at all, you know. I'm married to a gal, couldn't care less. And you know, they have the final game of the year, the Super Bowl. She said, is it finally over, you know, at last? I said, yeah. I said, but the baseball's starting now.
Yeah, right. You follow baseball too?
Oh, sure.
You get down to San Diego? You ever root for the teams down there?
No, listen, I only been to the Dodgers Stadium once this year, watch them play Houston. Not as much as the other. San Diego. Go down and watch a bunch of losers? Easy, Bob.
Boy, listen, I just about came over the bar there at you, Scott. Watch that. They're coming on. They're coming on.
Got a long
They're
way
growing.
to go.
They're
Yes.
growing. Yeah, one of these days, though, we'll have a winning team back, just like, you know, Notre Dame had a few slim years, you got to admit.
Ron Waller's a very good old friend of mine, was interim coach there for a while, and of course I was telling you earlier, Harlan is a friend of mine. I met him the other night. They got the troubles.
Well, maybe they'll come on.
They might not have a season coming up. These guys don't. I noticed the actors just settled their strike.
Yeah. But whether the football players will or not, who knows?
I don't know.
Well, anyway, this guy will be back on the series this fall. You'll be seeing him, Scott Brady.
Police Story.
And
That's the
Police
one.
Story. Sane? Why?
Well,
We just don't know right now.
Do you like it?
Did I like doing it? I love doing it.
Did you?
Yeah. It was exciting and fun, and
And you wouldn't mind seeing it a regular
I
thing?
wouldn't mind seeing it a regular thing.
Yeah. You see, they want the shot, right?
Pardon?
Sit back so they can see Jessica. It says here, the dual role in photo finish is still your favorite.
Forget it. Forget it. I moved back.
Before this lady sat down, I made the director frisk her for knives. I do not want any of that slashing around that went on, and play Misty for me, Jessica Walter.
Hi. Nice
What a
to see you.
role that was, Jessica.
Yeah, that was a wild one.
Boy,
that was a wild one. I don't carry knives though.
Don't carry knives.
No.
Oh, thank
No.
goodness. No scissors, nothing like
No.
that.
No.
How did you perform that? Were there a lot of trick photography shots in there?
No, there weren't, actually. We had a couple of gimmicks as far as when I stabbed the man with the scissors. He had a contraption on his chest under his shirt with a saran wrap baggie of blood and the scissors went in there and it caught. All these kind of, you don't want to disillusion the audience though, you know.
Yes, I do.
But we had a dummy knife that we used, except in a couple of places where we knew we could use a real knife. But Clint Eastwood, you know, his thing is all from those Italian movies, those Fistful of Dollar movies and everything. Is blood and gore. The makeup man, the first day I think that we did a bloody scene, had a Vicine bottle of blood, and Clint said, "Quarts, bring in quart bottles. None of this Vicine stuff." So, but it was fun. It was fun to do.
Yeah, that was a great movie. It made a great
Well,
impact
I'm glad you
on the
think
American
so.
public. Did you find it so after that, when people would meet you on the street, did they say things differently to you than they'd said before
Well,
as an actress?
they were really nice, I must say. People did like the film, and they realized it was just a film, and I'm really not like that. And I've been lucky. People have always been nice as far as that's concerned.
But you have played a neurotic lady or two in your
Yes,
time.
I have, mostly.
Yes, but you say that's not typecasting. You're not really.
No, it isn't. I always figured nobody else will do them, so they end up getting me or something. I don't know. But I'd rather be typecast that way because the parts are more interesting than just be a sweet ingenue who says, "How was your day, dear?" I think I'd be bored to death.
How about the language that they asked you to say in that?
Well, I'd heard it before.
Had you said it before?
I'm sure I even maybe said it before, but it wasn't that bad, you know, and it was used very discriminately to make the point of a psychotic double personality, so luckily it was the writer that gets all the blame for me cursing. It's great, you can get out all your venom feelings that way and you can't get the blame for it.
Tell me about the Amy Prentice part on NBC Mystery Movie.
Amy Prentice, I gotta say, as much as I like playing Misty for me and a couple of other things I've done, this so far has been the most exciting because I play a nice, straightforward, honest, law-abiding lady who has a rather interesting position. She's chief of detectives in the San Francisco Police Department, and there's no women's lib aspects or any of that stuff. We're taking the attitude of she's a human being trying to do the best job she can do. The fact that she happens to be female does produce some conflicts and different stories than that have ever been seen on television. So I think that our gimmick is not a wheelchair or a raincoat or whatever. Our gimmick really is the fact that we've got a woman in this position.
Is this a two-part series?
Well, this is part of the Sunday night mystery movie, and so far, as I speak to you, we've had two-hour movies, two hours ordered, and maybe more. We don't know at this point, but like two's enough for me, man. I mean, wow, that's a lot of work. It's like doing two films.
Is it a lot harder than doing, let's say, two films?
It really
because
is.
Of the time
Yeah,
schedule?
because
Yeah.
you do, for instance, Play Misty for Me, which ran about 90 minutes, took 8 weeks to film. And these shows, which run 2 hours, minus a few minutes for commercials here and there, we will have about 13 days. Half the time.
Wow.
So it's hard.
Yeah,
You know.
and for these, are you called upon to pull up as many emotions as you would be, say, in Play Misty for me? Is it harder work, I'm trying to say?
I'll tell you, this is going to kind of sound abstract, but it's a very good question, a very intelligent question. It's really harder to do Amy Prentice than it is to do Play Misty for me, because when you've got it, like in Misty, you had all these explosive scenes, you know, you could just go crazy and wild and scream and yell, and it's easier when you got to walk a thin line of being an authoritative person in an administrative position plus being a feminine lady. It's really harder to walk that thin line and do it correctly.
Well, you have the background to do it. I'm sure you pull it off.
I hope so.
We'll be watching for Jessica
Thank
Walter
you.
on Amy Prentice and NBC Mystery Movie this fall. Bobby Troup has a rather unique life in that he can work with his wife in the series that he's on NBC, Emergency. And that's rather nice, isn't it? Working
It's
with Julie
very
London.
nice. It's very nice.
Is it sort of like working at home, or
No, it's really
much
the,
different than working
it's
at home?
really the nicest thing that's happened for me and Julie in our 20 years of being with each other. And before Emergency, she was on the road almost 8 months out of the year, and I was working in clubs. And then when Jack Webb decided that we should do Emergency, it brought us together. We have 7 children between us, and it's really been marvelous.
How did they happen to pick a jazz musician as an actor in Emergency?
I had
Of course,
done-
you'd done parts before.
I'd done quite a, starting back in 1948, with a movie called The Duchess of Idaho. Was the first picture I'd ever done. And I did quite a few Perry Masons, the old Perry Masons. And I'd done about 7 dragnets, 5 or 7 dragnets. And Jack liked me as an actor. And of course, Julie was an actress long before she was a singer. She,
I didn't
oh
know
yeah,
that.
she
I
had
thought
a,
she came out of-
no, she had a 4-page spread in Life magazine back in February of 1948. She made a picture called The Red House with Edward G. Robinson.
I remember that.
Yeah, and she was
Terrific
picked as one of the biggest potentials of all the starlets.
with Rory Calhoun.
Right, Rory
Yes.
Calhoun and Lon McAllister.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
a Saturday Evening Post story.
Right.
Terrific story. Yeah. And of course, Bobby Troup came down Route 66. That's the way he got to Hollywood.
Yes, I really did.
Along with a lot of other people. You were mentioning something rather interesting to me a minute ago about Emergency appealing to the younger people. How
It
did that
does.
come about?
Well, I don't know about the accuracy of what I'm about to say, but I think 2 or 3 NBC programs had fallen by the wayside against All in the Family. It was such a tremendously popular show. So when they pitted Emergency against All in the Family, the producer said, what audience can we get away from All in the Family? And very wisely, he said that the kids really don't relate to All in the Family. It's primarily an adult program. So let's make a program that appeals to kids and concentrate on Kevin Tighe and Randy Mantooth and the sirens and the
All
fire
the action
engines,
of the
all the
fire
actions.
engines and the-
Yes,
Sure.
and it happened that way. I think it's many children's very favorite program.
You don't sell to kids, though, commercially,
Oh yes, we do.
with the products and
Oh
stuff?
yes, we have the lunch baskets, and we have the emergency T-shirts, and we have all the things.
Oh, I see what you mean, yeah. But I mean the commercials that go on the show are not necessarily aimed toward
Oh
kids.
no,
They're
no,
aimed
no!
toward
I think adults can enjoy the program too, but children particularly like the program. Both my boys, I have twin sons, and they were involved in Little League this year, and I was the most popular father on the
Terrific. That's great. Well, I'm very happy with it. It's appealing to everybody because it's a very popular show, and it's doing well. And it's what season this year?
And 3rd and a half year now. We started mid-season.
Yeah. That's a goodie.
Oh,
Will
it
you ever
is
go
good.
back to music?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah?
I think so. Although I don't miss as much as I thought I would.
Okay. You have time to compose?
Yes, I do, but I don't.
Or you know
I think the last song I had that was popular was Girl Talk.
do composers go through dry spells, Bobby?
I think so. I always have. I think you always, when you have a hit, at least when I've had a hit, and I've had 3 big ones, starting with Daddy, I Won a Diamond Ring back in 1941, and then Route 66, that Nat Cole made popular, and Girl Talk. I think you always have the feeling, I wonder if I can do it again. I think all writers have that feeling.
Still shooting for another one?
Yes.
Boy, stay at it.
Okay. All right, Bob.
Don't make it an emergency.
Okay.
Bobby Troup, nice to have you here.
Thank you, Bob.